Growing up, I had seen many cartoons and other shows that would make fun of the stereotypical midlife crisis. But interestingly, as I've gotten older, what I've found more and more is that I've heard legit advice from people of individuals that would wake up in their 40s and ask themselves, what am I doing with my life? And as good as the intentions were of these people, it also brought with it another problem, a debilitating fear of having a midlife crisis, or more accurately as it's known as, a quarter-life crisis. A quarter-life crisis is basically when an individual in their 20s struggles with doubt regarding their own life. This almost seems like some kind of weird joke just to talk about a quarter-life crisis. This happens enough where there are plenty of movies, books, and in fact music that talk about individuals experiencing a quarter-life crisis. In fact, there currently is an entire website dedicated to helping individuals overcome their quarter-life crisis. To me, I didn't actually become aware of this until a couple months ago when I was looking up for ideas for different videos. And when I was looking up these ideas, I spent a lot of time on Quora. And what I found is actually that there was a lot of questions on Quora regarding a 20-something-year-old gone to school, had been in a career for a couple years, and either had quit or was in his job, and just felt like a total failure. This feeling of failure has spread across our culture in epidemic proportions. And part of it is due to that we have set up such a culture that it's almost too easy to not feel like a failure. In Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, he describes our culture as a culture that promotes exceptionalism. Everyone is special has become a psychological plague of our day. I don't think that it helps that as we go on social media, the news, that everything is promoting the exceptional people in this world. And I think at some points this can be very inspiring to each of us to, to kind of step up and to live better and to do greater things. But at the same time, we also begin to take that exceptionalism and then begin to adapt it as our own new standards. And when we don't live up to those new unrealistic standards for ourselves, we begin to feel like a failure because somehow we're not living up to the expectations that everyone else has. Benson continues saying that the truth is we're not all exceptional. We may be exceptional at not one thing, but not everything. How can we feel good about nothing when there's nothing to feel good about? We often feel like failures because we are comparing ourselves with other people. And most often it's the people that have the most publicity out there. With every video and Facebook post highlighting all these great successes people are having, there are thousands more of people that are experiencing great failures. We often feel like failures because we also don't completely understand our own selves. What I mean by this is we don't actually know what defines our own selves as a success or a failure. It kind of goes back to what I'm saying about comparing ourselves. In a lot of ways, we become overshadowed with the idea that after school, college, or whatever you're doing, that we're suspect that life is supposed to be awesome, that we're supposed to just somehow go out into the world and make tons of money and be going to this job that we absolutely love and being passionate about everything, and everything's supposed to be great, and we're gonna be married and have tons of kids. And the reality is what happens is that most of us, it doesn't happen this way. We often struggle with a job that we hate, that we dislike. We're not as good or as popular as we thought we would be. We still struggle with many of the same problems that we struggled with before. And in many ways, it puts us in a form of identity crisis. We all want to be doing incredible things, and especially at a young age. And sadly, that's what's been highlighted. But the reality is that not all of us are going to experience such great success early on. In fact, most of the truly successful people that we know about have actually experienced some of their greatest failures in their early 20s. And it wasn't until they were in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that they had experienced great success. So the solution here, like any philosophical or psychological question, can be a little bit difficult to answer. But here are a few ideas that might be able to help you as you encounter your own quarter-life crisis, or possibly even avoid it. The very first thing is kind of most obvious, and that is to stop comparing yourself to other people. When we compare ourselves with other people, it's usually our weaknesses against their strengths. There's also many things that we also can't take into account of when we are comparing ourselves to other people. You don't know what resources they had that you don't. You don't know possibly what they've grown up with. You may also not know what they are struggling with currently, or even the failures that they had to take to get there. My second recommendation is that we need to learn to reframe success and failure. We often identify ourselves as failures not because that we haven't accomplished anything. Usually our sense of failure comes from the fact that we don't feel like we're having a great enough impact on the world, or that what we do on a day-to-day basis isn't making any difference in anyone's lives but our own. And in fact, sometimes we don't even feel like we're making any difference in our own lives. As best-selling author Paul Agnon has said, that the only true failure in your 20s is to have none at all. And he goes on to say even further that success in your 20s really is more about setting the table than enjoying the feast. Really, what Paul is saying is that these early times in our life can be great and amazing, and that the success that we're going to have here isn't about the rewards that we receive as much as us preparing to reap the benefits of what we are doing right now. So if you're feeling frustrated at where you're at right now in your life, just remember that this is just the time to plant seeds, and that in a few years that you will be able to reap the hard work that you are creating right now. And really to be persistent in that, and that to find joy in the journey that you're taking and not be so consumed with the destination. In another video, I'm actually going to be talking about this a little bit more in depth regarding career advice and how to choose a career, so stay tuned for that. But for now, just be sure to redefine your success now as suffering through the pain to be able to reap the benefits later. The third and last piece of advice is to really decide what matters to you most right now. And why I think this is such a crucial piece of advice is that we're going to be facing many different questions in the next 10 to 20, 30, 50, however many years. And as we decide what truly matters to us, we can somewhat make those decisions easier by knowing where our boundaries lie. Deciding what matters to us can also have us perspective of what not to define success and failure as. We can feel successful at what we're doing because what matters to us most is not what we're making, but what we are doing. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it, and I wanted to be able to reach out to you guys a little bit more in the process of making these videos. So I've decided to open a new Facebook group to allow all of you to post your questions and comments there, and also to be able to take it further and actually have a discussion regarding some of these topics. You can find a link to that group below, as well as also some other resources to help you possibly if you are experiencing a quarter-life crisis. Also, what are some of your thoughts? Have you experienced a quarter-life crisis? What has helped you get through it? Or are you going through one now? And what possibly advice are you looking for? Please leave a comment below, and I look forward to hearing you guys and seeing you guys next week.